Look, Chris, I know you've got a lot to get through and you have some pictures to help accompany your words and help you tell your story. So as per yesterday, I'll be back to put any questions you might have to Chris as soon as he has finished with his kind of story bit. Probably take about 15, 20 minutes. So please do put your thinking caps on, raise your virtual hands. We'll bring up as soon as we can. In the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, Chris Seller.
This is a different time, that we're moving into. We're looking at the world. We really see the cusp of sustainability really being a key change point. And we also see digital as a key enabler to making that happen. This past 2021, Schneider improved our position in the rankings with Knightbridge from number 29 in the world out of the 8,000 large companies they surveyed to number 1. And we're very proud of that accomplishment. So I wanted to start with that, having achieved some of the things that we have in sustainability. Our clients have come to us and say, how can we make this happen ourselves? It's fine and good that Schneider has a program, but what are the tangible ways that you, Schneider Electric, can help us achieve our objectives? And today, I'm in a meeting with one of our largest customers later, directly after this. And one of the key topics on the agenda is not just our software and how that can increase efficiency and drive their competitiveness. And of course, that's still on the agenda, but they want to know about how sustainability can be a key part of that puzzle. Just imagine, in your own businesses, the things that we do really well in digital fit sustainability in a great way, right? Finding goods to source things locally to reduce carbon footprint. All of our digital catalogs, our abilities to do unstructured data search and to find supply chain optimization opportunities across the globe. These are things that we do now, right? So it's not like we have to imagine totally new technologies. It's about turning on some of the things that we have. If we think about simplifying the tracking of our total carbon footprint across the supply chain, this cannot be done in a spreadsheet. Right? This is a massive, hulking, complex problem. And quite frankly, I think that those of us in digital, this is where we thrive, right? This is what we wake up for, is the ability to take on these problems, whether it's helping to optimize our inventories, to make sure that we're reducing the cycle time of our manufacturing operations. So it's that same type of technology that we can turn on to solve a lot of these problems. As I think about some of the historical challenges that have kept us from some of the opportunities to manage and optimize sustainability, a lot of it comes down to data and managing unstructured data, being able to pull together different formats of different types of product catalogs in an aggregate way and really understand how those pieces can come together. With the new tools that we are seeing within digital, whether it's the new Lakehouse or cloud-based architectures to bring together data SQL environments as well as data lakes together in the same environment, have a metadata layer that allows us to start to streamline and access that information. All these same tools, the things that you're already presently working on, have tremendous potential for your companies as well as for your customers. So the problem I'm going to talk about today is how we're thinking about this within the buildings and construction area. First, thinking about the big problem. 38% of global emissions related to energy is related to buildings and construction. It's a big hulking number. And at Schneider Electric, we're a major supplier to all the organizations around the world that are building those new buildings and renovating buildings. How might we help them and their customers have an impact on carbon in this area? And we really see this as a big opportunity, but we're not looking at this opportunity by ourselves, right? What we've done is actively collaborating and testing our new technologies, and I'll talk a little bit about some of them, around design, building, the actual construction process, and the operation of those buildings. We're trying that out with customers and leading suppliers. So just the way that you would iterate in your agile way today, new products, this is what we're doing in our existing supply chain today. We're also looking at ways of leveraging standardization wherever possible and then also turning on those next generation technologies that I referenced before in new powerful ways. So just to give you some examples of things we're exploring, and I don't want people on the call to think that all these things are cracked and done. We're looking for partners and we're collaborating with customers to make these things happen. But we are working with some of our alliance partners that do deep simulations, physics-based simulations of buildings early in the design phase to help us understand what a building or even a set of buildings or a city, what are the energy demands of that could be. And taking into account all the materials in the building, the airflow, all of those things, using the same type of advanced modeling that we do in our manufacturing process for buildings, and taking into account the impact of carbon. Also working with our startup ecosystem. We have a 500 million euro investment fund that we work with, as well as with many other funds for startups. And one of the startups we're working with, introducing to some of our large retail clients, is helping them very quickly as they roll out a store, optimize the carbon and energy impact by reviewing the materials that could be used and the cost of those materials. And so even for a net zero retail location that one of our customers had, they were still able to, in this tool, something that took them literally 12 to 13 weeks in terms of design, they were able to do that in a matter of hours with this tool set and still actually make incremental improvements in terms of cost optimization and impact on climate. So it's about unleashing the technology to do a lot of things that are done manually today. Great thing about construction is it is one of the last undigitized industries, but doing those things in a new way. So that physics-based simulation is a good example of how we're turning that on. And I just wanted to go back just for a second. We want to make sure that we're also talking about how do we optimize our renewable grid. So we have tool sets that help our customers think about the solar and wind. So we have the demand from our buildings to do the physics-based simulation, and then we marry that with the potential for renewables and how to optimize those renewable resources. And then, enabling the sharing of those designs and iterations among the different players in that supply chain. So today, when a design is happening, the architects are frequently working in different design solutions than the engineering people and the people that are writing the specs. And there's a lot of rework and a lot of inefficiency in the process. And then when it comes to actually going into the build process, which is where we're going next, that even becomes worse because the reality of the cost of materials changes, the realities on the ground of what's available change. So how do we make sure that we have our three-dimensional detailed model about how we're going to optimize the building design, but marrying that to the procurement of materials, the ongoing materials management and control during the build process. And then providing that, what we used to call cradle to grave control of materials and then understanding the technical specification of everything that goes into that building. But I would say now, we're looking at the circular economy. So it's really cradle to reuse or repurpose. But in order to do that, you have to know what's in the building. You have to know what equipment is in there, you have to know what materials, and you have to know where. Having the right database and data structures in place and the right software is really critical. As I mentioned before, you're not doing this on a spreadsheet. And then, as it changes, frequently what was designed is very different from what we call the as-built. But again, we can go back to the same physics-based AI type modeling simulations to check to see how close are we to what was designed and built. What is the optimization going to be when that building actually moves into operation? And then once we're in operations, everybody's talking about, of course, the opportunity to have intelligent maintenance. So we're only sending maintenance personnel when they're needed, lowering carbon by eliminating all those maintenance trucks on the road and increasing our own efficiency. But it's also about optimizing on an ongoing basis the energy and carbon in that building. So today, we have a lot of monitoring solutions that we've invested with Schneider Electric to bring together all the sensor data and leverage our own BMS solutions within the building. But we're also exploring ongoing simulations of the building and allowing our owners to think about renovations to help them further optimize their existing infrastructure. Because a lot of what's going to happen in buildings, especially in Europe and in the US, is going to be in the renovation space. So we want to make sure that we're continuing to feed that potential. And then in operations, as we're tying together this whole digital thread from design, build to operate, we want to make our buildings smarter. We want to make our designs smarter. We want more energy efficient buildings. We want lower carbon buildings. We want our occupants' comfort to be excellent as well. And so by taking the information that we're gathering from sensors and analyzing that, we can then feed that back into our generative design models to help optimize that next generation of sustainability in buildings and that next generation of renovations within buildings, and help your customers in their endeavors in that same space. How can we eliminate what we call the techno waste, all the digital devices and computers that end up in landfills instead of being recycled? How can we eliminate the pollution and enable that circular economy for the specific areas that you're focused on? So these are going to be unique to each one of the organizations, but it's really driving that first sustainability purpose, and then innovating what that new to be can be, as I mentioned, with customers, with suppliers, having the candid discussions about the opportunity as well as some of the costs with your shareholders, working with governments and trade associations and community leaders to make sure that you're getting a full, diverse group of opinions into what you can possibly do. And then exploring the digital impact across the whole life cycle of your products. It doesn't have to be buildings. Buildings, I think, obviously is our business, but whatever the solutions that you or your customers have, that whole life cycle potential is really critical around sustainability. So how do you continually improve design for greater sustainability? How do you leverage the digital automation that we have within the digital environment to build and automate that process? And how can we make sure we're thinking about the new use cases for AI and quantum to solve some of these big hulking problems? I like to say nothing gets digital people more excited than a few big hulking problems. And I think this space is ripe with them, right? And then for digital, and that information digital flow that I talked about, using digital, just like we use our dashboards today to monitor our supply chains and our resiliency, using that same technology to automate the gathering of data, the structured and unstructured data, to track how you're doing toward your sustainability objectives. And then also using that same technology to drive the compliance reporting. Today, a lot of the compliance, especially around sustainability, is manual and consulting based stuff. And I can tell you that this is not scalable, right? So there's a great potential for us to turn on the digital environment to meet this next generation of challenges.